Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the May 31st, 2024 meeting of the East Hampton Trustees to order. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Allison, you want to do roll call?
Sure. John Aldred,
Here.
Francis Bach, David Cataletto,
Here.
Patrice Dalton, here. Ben Dollinger, Tim Garneau,
Here.
Jim Grimes,
Here.
Celia Josephson,
Here.
Bill Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. And we're going to start with public comment. Sarah Davidson's here from the Friends of Georgia Pond. Did everybody get a chance to read the proposal that she sent over to us? I did. Okay. All right, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Jim, and good evening, members of the trustees. Great to see you all today. Sarah Davison with the Friends of Georgia Pond Foundation. As Jim said, pond has been open all winter. The winter dredging, as you know, was successful, and the pond has not closed up, although it appears it might be closing up soon, Jim. I don't know what you think, but
Yeah, it's wandered way over to the west, and that usually is a sign.
So
Towards the end.
at this point, there's been a lot of flushing, and I hope it does close so that we can get on with summer activities at the pond, like sailing and kayaking. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I wanted to just come back to you. I made an overall presentation of the field season early in the year, and there were a request for more detail about this new experiment that we're proposing, the photocatalytic experiment on Georgia Pond or Georgia Cove water and sediment. So I, in consultation with Dr. Goldberg, I put together a one-pager for you that I sent in. And basically what we're asking for tonight is permission to sample off of a private dock in the cove to collect water samples and sediment samples to bring back to the Gobler lab and then run experiments on using this titanium dioxide chemical, which releases a lot of oxygen into the environment, and then growth in algae, beneficial algae in this case, that help break down the organic sediments. And this is, Dr. Gobler wanted me to make sure you understood this is very much of an experiment. It would be contained in a lab. It's quite a few years away from even considering introducing it into an ecosystem. The DEC will be there every step of the way. They have not permitted it, and they're aware of it. They know that Dr. Gobler's experimented with it in other places. So what we simply want tonight is the opportunity to look into this deeper, this field season, to collect the samples in Georgia Cove, which is the area which has the most deepest organic rich sediment, which would be the real acid test. If it worked in Georgia Cove sediments, it could work in many places. So,
Hey, Sarah, I think everybody here has read your paperwork,
Great.
But maybe for the public, if you could just go through the bullet points of what the goals of the
sure.
of this sampling and survey are.
Sure. So again, sediments, organic sediments are very deep in Georgia Pond, and the reason they're of interest to us at all is that they're the largest source of phosphorus to the pond water. They harbor phosphorus, and every now and then that phosphorus is released and gets kicked up into the pond, and phosphorus, like nitrogen, especially in freshwater systems, can be a trigger for algal blooms. So there's too much phosphorus in the Georgia Pond ecosystem, and it's coming from the sediments. And so we've been thinking and looking at the Georgia Pond sediments for many years now, and the original idea was we could do some environmental dredging to remove those sediments. That's been done in other ecosystems on Long Island, Forge River, many other places. We did a very small experiment of dredging up at the head of Georgia Cove, but it's a very difficult operation. Jim knows how we struggled in that first experiment. There's no place really appropriate to dewater this very liquidy, mucky sediment on the pond edge, and the DEC is not really very favorable towards this kind of activity these days. So we just think there are alternatives to dredging, and one of them is just, I think flushing the pond out is good. The dredging that you are doing helps and keeping nitrogen from entering in large quantities keeps the sediment level down. But the idea of digesting the sediment, and that has been done in some other ponds, out of New York State. And so that's the thinking of why we want to look at this and what the issue is. And how it would be done is the Gobler Lab's proposing to collect 1,000 liters of surface water over the course of the field season and 100 liters of sediment using a grab technique. Bring it back to the lab and then run the titanium dioxide, which is it's a chemical we're all very familiar with. It's in your sunblock, it's in food, it's in all sorts of materials. So at the level of be using, it would be very, very non-toxic, if you will.
Sarah, what do they want to achieve when they have the sediment in the lab and they add the titanium dioxide?
Mm-hmm.
Will they see a reaction that they're looking?
Yeah, presumably. Again, now you're going to get me a little out of my depth here. It would be they would have a quantification of how much sediment was in a tank. Presumably, then they would introduce the reagent, and then there would be chemical and biological reactions, and I guess they'd be able to measure the change in the biomass of the organic matter, or what. The idea is to digest the organic matter in the sediment.
It breaks it down.
Breaking it down, yeah.
Hey, Sarah, is there any non-chemical alternative to the goals that you're setting out here? And is there a possibility, if there is, of doing sort of a parallel experiments in that to see where the efficacy lies?
Yeah.
I think anytime you're talking about, okay, we're going to digest the sediment, but we're going to do it with a chemical product. Okay, this is not a natural product, it's a man-made product. I think there's always going to be a lot of questions. I would have a lot of questions. Sure. I'd be very reticent in signing off in the field application here without some really good, solid research, both before, during, and after. And I'm not saying like right after, down the road. We would want to do one thing to find out a few years down the road that yes, it digested the sediment, but did it leave something that created?
Right.
Not for nothing. When DDT came out, they thought it was a pretty good product.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do they know at this moment, like if they take titanium dioxide and the sediment, do they know what's going to happen?
Well, it has, I think they have an idea. That's why they're proposing this experiment. It has been used in some lakes down south that Gobler was ancillary to those experiments. It has been actually used in Lake Agawam. That is not under the DEC jurisdiction, as you may know. So that group went ahead and did it there. And I think it's been used other places. So they have an idea what would happen, but every Gobler is not at all sure that it will even work at Georgia Cove. So that's why we wanted to experiment. And to your question, Jim, I think, there are lots of outfits out there in the world using biological agents to decompose sediment, mostly bacteria, sort of patented bacterial treatments. Again, there's not good data, they're not really scientifically rigorous experiments, people just throwing this stuff in lakes and not really, just not really taking before, during, and after data, as you discussed, and maybe the lake looks clearer after it's been treated, but there's just not.
It's data comparative to a control. You see a lot of this stuff comes out. Well, we applied compost teas to plants. We didn't see this particular disease. All right, well, that sounds good, except did you check where it wasn't used in that given season? Some years you don't see particular diseases, and the product may actually have done nothing measurable, made you feel good.
Right.
And that's really what I'm kind of
Yeah,
asking.
so this would be rigorous lab experiment. I mean, and it, we will share with you immediately the findings, and then there'll be more process. I'm sure there'll be more, based on the initial findings, there'll be more testing required. And, again, I think we're talking quite a few years here. This is just to get the ball rolling.
But if
The
you,
Lake Agawam project done under heavy controls or?
I knew you were going to ask that, Bill. I just don't know enough about the Lake Agawam. I know that there,
It's done two or
just-
3 years ago, right?
yeah, and I think there were mixed, the results were mixed, and Gobler wasn't involved in it, so I just don't know that much about it, but I know it has been used there.
But basically, at this point in time, you're just asking to remove a small amount of,
Right.
Yeah, and
It's
the
a
product's not gonna be used, product is not gonna be used in the
nothing's
field,
going
so-
into the pond.
Not at
it's
all.
coming out of the.
And things are being, water and sediment will be removed from the pond.
what will your decision criteria be around expanding this? So you take it in the lab and you do this work. What are you gonna look for to make a go to expand it into the natural environment?
Well, I think there would be probably repeated experiments in the lab necessary because one season probably doesn't justify drawing many conclusions. And then, of course, to expand it into an ecosystem would require more trials and more, and of course, permitting and review by the DEC.
Yeah, because you think about the quantity you would need to deteriorate the sediment.
Right.
It might be excessive.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a really important point, Patrice. Can you scale this up to even just impact Georgica Cove, And I know from reading some of the papers about these, bacterial treatments that the amount that gets used in some of these lakes is enormous, big sprayers coming in and spraying it all around. So, it might end up being that it's just not feasible for either because of expense or scalability or negative, side unanticipated impacts.
Then I would look at what are the alternatives to doing this in large scale. So we talked about dredging or I don't know,
Well,
whatever.
I think at this point, we're not weighing other options unless they're coming back to us with something.
Right.
Right now, they're asking to take water and some sediment samples.
Right.
All the work is lab work. So there's no threats to any of our environmental stuff unless we feel that some of this sediment is so near and dear that we don't want to give any of it up. Personally,
Doesn't seem like
I
a
would
huge amount.
I would take this opportunity to make a motion to approve this
I
project.
second.
The only condition I would put on it is that, Sarah, you come back to us and share
Absolutely.
the results. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I second. I think it's fascinating.
It'll be interesting, I mean, it may lead nowhere, but it may lead to something that
So-
could be beneficial to many water bodies.
It's gonna be a multi-year thing?
I'm sure it will, Bill. This is,
Yeah.
they never are 1 year.
No. Yeah. sounds
Yeah.
good.
Why doesn't the DEC have control over Lake Agawam?
That's there was a history in that. I read a little bit about it, but many decades ago, they ceded their authority to the village of Southampton. I think they felt maybe it was such a mess that they didn't want to have anything more to do with it. I don't know, but they don't have regulatory authority in Lake Agawam.
And what's the reaction with the titanium dioxide and the phosphorus in the sediment takes place? What's the product?
That's a chemistry question that I can't answer.
Okay, but it's a chemical reaction. It's
Yeah.
going to produce some byproducts.
Yeah, and it involves the oxygen separating off the titanium and binding with the phosphorus. we can find, I can get that for you, yeah.
Sure.
But it also involves then biological components of particularly microscopic algae that get involved in the decomposition as well. I think it's pretty complicated.
The oxygen allows them to survive?
Yeah, it's definitely an aerobic environment.
As long as you're taking stuff
So
out.
we've got a motion, we've got a second. Do we have a vote?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried.
Thank you,
Sarah,
board.
thank you.
We'll be back to report at the end of summer, okay?
Thank you, Sarah.
Do we have anybody on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to new business. John, do you want to do the reclassification at Napeague Harbor? You seem to be the most up to date on that.
Can you put that map up on that
Yes, working on that now.
DEC document? And so there's been a closure of portion of Napeague Harbor to shellfishing seasonally on DEC in the northeast corner. And there's no bacterial problem up there. It's sort of a precautionary closing because of birds alighting on the shellfish growing gear of the hatchery up there. Shellfish sanitation program that the DEC administers for the National Shellfish Sanitation Program and the FDA, who are sort of responsible for public health and shellfish consumption, has in the last several years focused on the issue of birds alighting on floating shellfish growing gear and the potential problem that can cause directly to the shellfish growing below. In some cases, in recent years, including in East Hampton, commercial shellfish farms have actually been closed down for a period of time because the birds have become a problem and deterrent gear that people have tried to devise hasn't worked very well. When a farm is closed, it's usually closed temporarily so that the floating gear, it gets a chance to sink and depurate naturally before it's raised again and growth and sale of the product continues. In the case of the northeast corner of Napeague, there's no adult oysters or clams or scallops being grown. It's all just seed. But the concern is that if birds can't be kept off the gear, there will be, it will lead to high coliform counts, which will close the harbor, will close that area of the harbor anyway. Ironically, floating gear has been used in the northeast corner of Napeague since about 1990, and no DEC testing of that area, which happens continually, has ever exceeded the levels required to close the area. So it's just kind of a new thing, or relatively new thing, that's coming down from the federal government to the local level to basically be concerned about.
It's too bad. That's a pretty decent area for clam.
In parts of it is, a lot of it is deep, a deep hole, Skunk's Hole there. Part of it is. But when Northwest Harbor or Northwest Creek closed, when portions of it closed, it in some cases was an opportunity for local people to be able to harvest unfettered by, a lot of year-round, summer people taking clams because it was closed seasonally.
Seasonally, yeah.
It was only open in the winter. And in fact, that happened when I was at the hatchery, and we took that opportunity to seed Northwest Creek pretty heavily with oysters in the hopes that it would be sort of a commercial, a boon for the commercial harvesters, which it turned out to be. So the similar thing could happen here, that because the summer harvest won't take place, it could be, a place to look to harvest in the winter for local commercial harvesters. So there's two pictures there, Allison. Can you show those? I just wanted to say that Barley's been working on bird deterrent methods for the last few years, and with varying degrees of success. And he has a new method that seems to be working in a couple of oyster gardens that they're deployed in now. So he'll be putting this method onto the gear in the grow out area here this summer, and hopefully that will keep enough birds off so that the DEC is satisfied that their bird deterrent program is acceptable. If that's the case, this closure will be able to be lifted, but that is because this closure is sort of an official act that went into DC regulations, it's going to take a while to make sure these work and do enough testing to satisfy this DC and the National Shellfish Sanitation Program that the deterrence is working and the closure can be lifted. Hopefully, it's closed this year, it can be opened next year. So this is the method that seems to be working. It's basically just two strings between two pieces of, looks like PVC, attached to each side of the float on the cage that oysters are grown in a garden. And this is the same gear that Barley and the hatchery uses in their field grow out setup in Napeague also. So
The water quality hasn't changed.
water quality's never tested problematic. It's never tested high enough in bacteria levels to close the area.
It's like the federal government's involved.
When I was at the hatchery, we had rafts with stacks of bread trays that we used to grow oysters and clams. We had about, maybe 40 or 50 of these rafts. And, they were solid structures, not so much like just a couple of floats holding a basket. And we used to have a boat that we worked off of, and we would run the boat down the strings of rafts and then on to the next string. When we were working on a string of rafts, the birds stayed away, but every other string of rafts was completely filled with terns and cormorants. In fact, to the point where we would, at lunchtime, sometimes count numbers of roseate terns versus common terns and send the results to this woman, Helen Hayes, who worked at the Museum of Natural History and has done for decades, tern colony work on Gull Island off Orient. So this has been, birds have been in the northeast corner of Napeague on shellfish gear for decades and never caused a problem.
And do you think the inlet had?
The inlet helped, yeah. But still, the inlet's been closed since 2000. Yeah, at least over 10
I
years.
think.
And it's, and
The inlet being
testing.
open, make this much better.
Sure, it would help, yeah. Would help the whole harbor. But it never, regardless, when the inlet closed, the numbers never really rose. Bacterial counts never really rose in that part of the harbor.
So this is a little theoretical closure.
Well, it's preventative, pretty much. But, and it's not just East Hampton that's affected by this. It's, you know, all the leaseholders in the bay, the commercial growers of shellfish have to comply with these regulations as well.
All the shellfish regulations start out at a federal level and then they're administered by states, so.
Right.
It, probably,
Yeah, initially, the Food and Drug Administration oversaw this stuff, and kind of interesting history to it. This all started, you know, there was a huge oyster industry in New York and Great South Bay, and this all started back on the late 1800s because cholera got into the environment because of the sanitation system in the city. So that's what started this whole shellfish sanitation program and testing for coliform bacteria and classifying areas of harvest. It's grown. Now there's a whole national shellfish sanitation program. There's the Interstate Shellfish Sanitation Commission, which sort of gets everybody together who's involved in shellfishing and kicks this around. And it has international ramifications because everybody who ships shellfish from the United States and to the United States has to comply with these regulations. So all the NSSP regulations have to be followed by China and France and all different countries that ship.
it sounds like
shellfish
something that
to
once
the
it
country.
starts, it's going to take the amount of data to get it to change, right?
Well, I think they're really just trying to keep birds off the gear as long as there's floating gear being used to grow shellfish. And that seems to be a popular thing to do, at least in the early stages, if not the whole life cycle until market for oysters. And oyster growing has become a very big thing on the East Coast for the United States. So.
Thanks, Joe. We'll move on. Is there anybody on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any new business that they want to bring up that we didn't have on the agenda? So we'll move on to old business. The trustee horseshoe crab monitoring program, which I'm involved in and Tim's involved in. I think, John, you do some count nights as well. I do Napeague Harbor. And what started out as kind of a ho-hum year was the last new moon. What we do for the monitoring is we go out 2 nights before either the new moon or full moon, do counts. If we have tags, perhaps tag crabs. Well, 2 nights before the new moon, I went out and counted 13 crabs, which was pretty friggin' dismal. Okay. 4. Okay, well, then it was consistent. So what was interesting is just 2 nights later, we had, I think it was 680. All right, same area, same stretch of beach. Okay, and then 2 nights after so that was the night of the new moon. 2 nights later, 2 nights after the new moon, we had 1,165. It's more crabs on a single night counting than we've ever had. And Allison, I think, did you put together some, I've been taking pictures. And then on this last moon, we expected it to kind of fall off a bit, which it did. The first night, Ben, when I went out, and my wife, we had 750 crabs. No, there's nothing showing here yet. So the last night of the, 2 nights after the new moon, we set out 25 tags. The two nights before the full moon, we set out 25 tags. The night of the full moon, we set out 25. And what you're looking at here is these are not crabs that we found. These were crabs that we were tagging. And what we're doing a lot of times is you're looking at a female to the left and then a male to the right. And then we've gotten a little more sophisticated with our tagging methods because for years we've been crawling around in the sand on our hands and knees. And I got to tell you, it sucks, okay? Because you got sand and everything, you got water and everything. So now we've evolved. We have this little table and we even have some assistants. And the young girl in the picture is Saoirse Quinn. And this kid, I got to tell you, she stole the show. She was great. She showed up the night of the full moon. She showed up 2 nights after. Ben and I and Saoirse, her mom, her dad, and the last night her brother helped tag, and we've got 100 tags out. But to date, we've tagged we've counted this year roughly 4,700 crabs. The same period last year was approximately half that, okay? We've recovered, and this is what we look for as we're going through. We look for individuals that we've tagged in years past. The second number typically represents a year. So what we've found is so far this year, we've recovered 23 tags. Of the 23 tags, we got one individual who just keeps showing up. You don't realize this until you kind of evaluate your data later, that we've picked up the same crab 3 times. But the interesting thing is we picked him up on the new moon the first time, and then we've picked this sucker up twice since then. And these are the crabs actually in the act of having sex. They're blowing bubbles. And it's pretty cool, because what you don't see sometimes in the lower left part of that picture, you don't see it when I'm taking pictures, but when I come back, you see minnows, you see all kinds of stuff that's taking advantage of this. The minnows this past moon, I don't know what kind of minnows they are. They're minnows. They're breeding, okay? And they're bringing out the diamondback terrapins, which come out early in the evening. They feed on these breeding minnows. So there's this whole little chain reaction of stuff going on. We've had eels. It's weird though, Dave? We have not seen one eel this year. Oh, yeah? Where usually
last year we saw a bunch.
We see them all the time. But you see, look at this guy here. How, some of them are all clean and nice, and size means nothing. You'll find like that's only maybe a 20 centimeter diameter crab. You'll see them, little tiny ones covered with barnacles, and then you'll see great big ones that their shells are perfectly smooth and clean. It's pretty wild. So anyway, that's my horseshoe crab wrap.
So you said that the count fell off in the new moon in the full moon from the new moon?
Only the first night, because what was weird, John, is we went from 1,165 the 2 nights after the new moon. First night, 2 nights before the full, and I'm just going by memory. We had about 750. Night of the full moon, we had a little over 1,000. And 2 nights after the full moon, we had over 1,000 again. So we start next week. I think we start back on the 3rd or 4th. It's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Sunday morning.
I gotta believe Napeag is going to fall off. Definitely. Because but it was incredible because we had them literally stacked up where Ben was counting, and it was one of these deals where you're calling out a male crab, a female crab. Ben's calling out 35 male crabs, 2 female crabs. Wow. Kind of thing. And the other weird thing is the early part of this, the proportion of females to males was greater. Usually it's 7-10 to 1 males to females. The early part of this, there was a lot more females. Now, this past moon, the females thing it became sort of what we've come to know as normal. You know, way more males. And, you know, you get the males, like they get to the point, they're humping pieces of asphalt on the bottom. I mean, these things will try and climb aboard anything.
My boots.
Like your boots, anything.
I'll get your boots.
I took a picture of 2 of these things on a piece of asphalt, and they were just going to town.
Well, females are the bigger ones and the males.
Females are the bigger ones. In that one picture that showed the 2 tags, what we do a lot of times is you'll see them. If the female is buried, we don't touch her.
Yeah, I agree.
But if they're out cruising, we'll pick the female up. The male is clasped to her, and he usually won't let go. So we'll just drag the 2 of them along. We'll do the measurements on them. We'll drill them. We'll tag them. And they end up getting consecutive tags, which is kind of handy because last year I actually recovered 2 consecutive tags that I had tagged the year before, less than 100 feet from where I picked them up a year later. You know, so they do seem to try and go back to the same spot.
Cornell just sent out a letter that in the last new moon cycle, there was a crab recaptured at Jones Beach, which had been initially tagged in West Hampton Beach in 2010. So that's like a 14-year journey.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I had one because I've been dying to have the recapture like you guys of a crab that I didn't tag.
Right.
Okay. So every time, like every night in the morning, basically I send Jen from DEC, you know, the numbers, and she gets back to me. Well, she got back to me later on. She goes, oh, that one crab was tagged at West Beach. I go, where the hell is West Beach? Well, she got right back to me. She said, sorry, I wrote the number down wrong. It was napping
again.
And it was like last year. I was like, all right. But
There's a really good article in the Star yesterday about that.
yeah, well, we had Chris Gangemi.
You, Drew?
Yeah,
That was Chris.
Oh, right.
Different.
and
Different Chris.
Chris was a real trooper because he went with me. I was taking pictures of turtles early in the evening, and then Chris showed up, and you could tell he was looking for the door. But I loaned him my waders, so he couldn't run. And then we shamed him into hanging out with us until like 12:30 that night, tagging the crabs and that. So I was thanking him for the article because he did a nice article, but it was really great. Actually, we had a good time with the kids out there, and we even had Marine Patrol hanging out with us the last
They want
night.
to come see if you're
And
poaching.
we didn't get out. We didn't get out of Lazy Point. Christ, when was our last night? Was what, Saturday night? We didn't get out of there until it was 1:45 in the morning. I think we left.
There's also currently a bill being considered by the New York State and the New York State Assembly to completely ban commercial harvesting of horseshoe crabs, and it's been passed in Connecticut. So fingers crossed that might happen here.
Yeah,
I'm a little
I'm going to be honest. I don't share
agnostic about that.
that we have to stop, because I don't blame the commercial harvesters for any change in the horseshoe crab population. If the population is going down, the population most likely is going down due to loss of breeding habitat, due to the over-harvest for medical purposes, and that, the second night I went down there, I don't even know who these people were. They said they knew you. Okay, these were friends of yours, these 2 chicks, and they are thrashing around in the water. And I get down there and I just go about my business. I'm taking water and measuring the temperature of the water and the wind. And these girls start, what are you doing here? Who who are you? What are you doing? I said, well, I'm doing the horseshoe crab thing. And she goes, we're friends of Tim Garneau's. We do it over in Northwest. And we just ran the poachers off. And I'm like, and they were in a boat. And the last time I heard, the Chinese poachers did not have a navy yet.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
that
but-
changed. So listen, I'm on my way down there. I see two guys pulling a boat in over at the launching ramp, and I get down there, and sure enough, they had, like 5 totes of friggin' horseshoe crabs, and you're allowed to take, I think 200 a day or 150.
I think it's 150.
Okay. And I asked him, do you have commercial tags? He said, yeah, we do. And it was all legal. It was all legit. Now, what the DEC started this year for the first time is this past moon, the harvest is shut down. Like there was no legal harvest of horseshoe crabs, period, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, and they send out a note each day with the number to call. Like, don't do anything.
Yeah.
There's someone,
take 'em
if there's taking them
Do they take 'em
during
Yeah.
that cycle to just call the DEC.
Yeah. And you know what? In all honesty, like I want to
They're
thank
responding.
Marine Patrol. Marine Patrol has done a fantastic job of making themselves noticed, okay? Every night I've been down, I have seen a Marine Patrol guy every night. And when you're doing something at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and somebody shows up, to me, that's a good thing. And last year I called Marine Patrol. Actually, I called him Treadwell at 1:30 in the morning one night. And I got to be honest, the guy answered on the second ring. And before I could say anything, he goes, I'll have guys right down there, because there was basically no other reason I'd be calling him at 1:30 in the morning. So listen, the guys are doing a good job.
They are.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know why we have so many more crabs this year. I'm guessing it's some sort of cyclical.
Sounds, could be, yeah.
That doesn't really mean anything other than I've only been looking at this through that little narrow.
Yeah, I don't know what the data is they're using to justify this closure, but I find it kind of hard to believe that the number of commercial fishermen there are today versus the number of commercial fishermen there were 30 years ago.
And it's that impacted.
It's the commercial, harvest of crabs that's driving the decline in the population. If the population is declining, I don't know what the data is they're using.
To me, guys, one of the things that I think is good news is if I'm coming across 20-some tagged individuals, okay, these guys are living to breed again next year. So they haven't been taken. I see that as kind of a good
They
sign.
probably don't take the
They don't
crabs
like
with
the males.
tags though, guys. The commercial guys won't take one with the tag.
Well, actually, some of the guys
Some
do, and I've had them call me and give me the car tag number.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what did, we had in the 400?
Yeah, we had,
right?
In the full moon, we had 395 with 3 recaptures, and that was the full moon minus 2 days. And then the full moon, we had 442 with 5 recaptures. And then the full moon plus 2 days, it was 427 with 6 recaptures.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I mean, I just think we're putting out so many more tags. We're getting more captures because we put out more years of
You had
tags going
6
up.
recaptures in one night
Yep.
on 400
On
individuals.
427, yeah.
Proportionally, that's
Yeah,
pretty,
exactly.
that's a
Those are
pretty
your
heavy
numbers.
number.
That was about half new tags
Oh.
and half.
But we don't count
tags.
if we don't, because what happens is you end up seeing the individuals throughout the whole moon cycle that you're working, so we don't count them as recaptures.
Well, it wasn't, the tagging didn't take place on the night we counted them.
Yes, actually, we got all our tags out the first night of the full moon.
Right.
We
And that was the third
we
night.
got through that was the third night. So some of them.
Yeah. I don't know, it's a 533 was the first 3 numbers. I think
Yeah.
everybody got,
Yeah, everybody's in the 53s.
The others were 531s. I don't know, the ones I got.
Yeah, I've got some. So how many tags did you guys set out?
50.
Oh, okay.
You had 100?
Yeah. We've had 100 the last 3 years.
Well, maybe they'll give us more.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, be careful what you ask for.
exactly.
I'm gonna be honest with you. If
I'm always happy when I'm done
I'm
tagging.
gonna be honest, if little Saoirse hadn't come along, it was gonna be a slow poke. Because me and Ben were getting kind of worn out.
Yeah,
Maybe they can sharpen up that spike to put
Yeah,
the hole
exactly.
in the shell too.
Have you tried the spike?
Tim was
I was
using the
doing the
spike,
spike,
yeah.
yeah.
But
I
it
don't
was
like the spike. I tried it. It was just, can I tell you what I saw
Not
happen?
as easy.
I saw it as a trip to the emergency room.
I just was doing, there were, at least our transect, there's not that many surf zone.
No.
There's mostly submerged.
Yeah,
And
same
going
with
in there
ours.
with an electric drill and I just felt more comfortable.
That's where the little table thing has been
Yeah, that
great.
makes sense. I like
It's a
that.
good idea.
The little table thing, we went, you don't have this, well, the other night, my wife, we got all the way down to the end of our transect and there was a lot of crabs and somebody had like one of those old wire spool tables and it was right next to the shore. So we started doing it on there.
Right.
And it was like discovering fire. It was like, geez, man, this is a hell of a lot easier.
Getting in there.
Dragging this thing up, because that's what would happen, is see how many times I've dropped the drill and like what you thought.
That's when I gave up
What
on
you
the
thought
drill.
was dry land, but it was Spartina and 2 inches of water underneath it. No, this was great, and that's what we did. We did the counts, and then when we knew we had a lot of crabs, we just carried the little aluminum thing back and set up. It kept the caliper from getting all full of sand and getting all fetched up.
That's a good system.
Next year, Tim, right?
Yeah. They said tarp. They said in training, they said just put it on a tarp and.
No, can I tell you what works for the first 2 crabs? And then the tarp is so covered
Sandy.
with
Messy at
crap
the bottom,
that it's no different.
Right.
That, the table's a good idea, but in Northwest, if it's not a, abundant year,
Yeah.
you have to keep moving
I
to
know.
find the crabs.
Right. If you have enough extra person that might just bring the table with it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the table weighs like 5 pounds, so it's pretty easy to just strap it back. And what we cheat, we just drive, because over at Napeague, you can take that little dirt road, it's close to the shore.
Yeah,
It's fairly convenient.
We got a little bit of a
Anyway,
hike.
yeah.
maybe we should move on to Hampton's Pride Parade. Who's gonna go to that?
I was talking
I
about.
can't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Bill, you gonna drive?
Yeah, I think
And
so.
that's what, Saturday?
Saturday, 11 o'clock, we meet, 12 o'clock it starts.
I think 11:30 was the meeting.
11:30 meet? Okay. Yeah, I think I'll have some Surf Rider, middle school Surf Rider
Yeah.
Club kids going.
Yeah, we checked earlier in the week to the flags and stuff are in the room.
I'm still busy.
Are
at
they in the
work,
room?
guys.
So are you gonna get the truck in the morning, Bill? And
Yeah.
bring it down there?
I don't know.
So I'll just meet you down there.
Yeah,
And you're gonna just throw the flags in the truck?
Everything's on the conference room table, including the key to the truck already for you.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
So we'll be down there like at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
No, like 11:30. It starts at 12, so 11,
Okay, so-
11:30.
When do we have to go to the assembly point?
11, I think 11:30.
Where are
No,
you gonna meet then?
It's like near the Presbyterian Church in East Hampton.
Okay.
I'm gonna march with the Alden Powers family.
Okay. John, do you have anything on that response from Dr. Gobler regarding the ownership?
Yeah, last meeting, Patrice, who works in statistics and is familiar with data, had a question about ownership of data. So I just asked Chris Gobler what policy was, just to get it on record. So his response was, "I'm happy to share all the data. My goal for the year is to generate a shareable database that will permit me to perform long-term trend analysis and for the trustees to have the entire data set." So,
The reason I was interested is John and I were at a meeting with the PEP where they had integrated land use data and eelgrass data over time. So they had a census of eelgrass data by geography, and then they could show you how much eelgrass there was. And then as the land use data was aligned with it, you could see as the land got more developed, the eelgrass disappeared. So sort of. So what I was thinking was, if we could have Dr. Gobler's, like some of his data, like the longitudinal data that he has, integrate that in that tool that PEP is going to allow us to use, that would be an interesting thing to see how land use data impacted anything that Dr. Gobler collected.
Yeah, it's data. Okay, it doesn't demonstrate cause and effect.
No, it's just a tool. It's just correlation does not mean causality.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's cool to watch, it's just.
No, and I
it
think
causes you to think about what happened here.
No, and I think the more the different organizations share information on stuff like this, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no losers here.
No, it's great because it's really intriguing. And when you put the data in front of people who need to see it, it's
And I
great.
think that answers the questions we had last month was, is this data proprietary? Is it owned by Chris Gobler? Is it not being shared? It is. I think it's done. We want to move on to committee reports. We've got the request from Bonnie Maisland to close out her permit for the revetment and for the revegetation at Kings Point 307 Kings Point Road, tax map number 300-24-1-11. Patrice, I think you went out to this one.
Yeah, I looked at it and I recommend that we sign off on it. It looks complete.
Yeah.
Because it's in 2 stages, so it was a little confusing, but the planting of the grass and, whatever the planting they had completed. But then there's a second part, not this permit, a second permit to increase the height of the revetment.
But they have not increased the height of the revetment?
They could see the excavation where the land was, was moved back, but no.
Okay,
They're
Where's
2
the
different
planting?
permits.
Where's the planting? Above all that?
yes, above
Yes.
the revetment.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to close out the permit.
Okay, Tim seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, harbor management, update on dredging at Devon Yacht Club. I got a call from Jim Walker yesterday or day before yesterday. The dredging work was completed over there. If we recall, at DEC, there was a requirement, given the fact that this dredging work was going to occur during horseshoe crab breeding season, that a on-site monitor had to be there the entire time the dredging project was going on to monitor and observe any horseshoe crabs. I think we'll all be happy to know that there was not one single horseshoe crab living in the basin. They were all over at Lazy Point having wild sex at the time. So,
Party.
Allison, did we get a notice of completion from them?
I did receive an email today. I have not yet been able to.
I think it
read
was a
late in
notice
the
of
day.
completion.
I think it was, but I haven't been
Yeah.
able to,
The project is complete. I've been down there. I'd like to make a motion.
Who did the monitoring?
I think it might have been Jim Walker. I know we put it out to you guys. I thought you were gonna jump on
I was gonna
that.
jump on it.
Sadly, you did not.
Prior commitment.
Other things to do.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to close this permit.
Second.
Aye.
Pump out boats. The 2024 pump out season has begun. The boats went in the water a week ago, Wednesday. They started work on that. Did they start Thursday or Friday, Allison?
pumping
Yeah,
on Friday.
Friday. So we're into a full week. We do have, Allison, did you put the request for the
Yep.
additional?
Put it actually under payment of the bills. There's a $500 request for boat supplies.
Okay, there's some boat supplies that we needed, and we, quite frankly, we knew we wanted this stuff, but we had held off, given the fact that Jim Catterson's gift to us was us not having to pay our bills or being able to pay our bills for a while. So that appears in the payable side. Season looks good. I tell you what, we got a great bunch of guys working the boats. Doug's doing a terrific job. He's very organized. He's very much up to date on preventative care. Our boats are now 3 years plus old. We're expecting, this is the year, things are going to start to break. We have a backup boat. We're putting some money into that. We're rebuilding the pump and stuff on that boat because I just think that we're going to have a situation where boat's going to break down. We did put that boat in the water for a little while last year, and I would like to run the old boat for a little while this year, just because, hey, having a backup is only good if the backup actually works. So that's where we are with the
So I had a
pump.
question about that flow meter that broke, stopped working.
Yeah.
Is that able to be rebuilt and held onto as a
I
spare?
think it's under warranty.
It
Now,
is
what-
not unfortunate. The part that broke is unfortunately not under warranty, but we haven't gotten to the part of it being fixed yet. We did get the replacement today, but I do believe it should be able to be fixed, but I haven't had that conversation with
John,
Elizabeth yet.
what we kind of did this in a sort of quick way is we had problems with the flow meter. The guy that sold us the flow meter was getting ready to go on vacation. It was pretty clear we weren't going to get a determination on whether this was warranty or not. But the fact that it broke said we should have a spare. So we bought a new one with the idea that the one that was broken will get repaired and will be held as a spare for the next one.
And what about, you're gonna have the boat, the wheel pump out, the waxed or whatever?
They're done, man. Those guys did a terrific job. They cleaned them, they waxed them. I mean, honestly, we haven't had a team of guys do that since Sid by. So it's nice to see.
That's important.
So moving on to the administrative stuff, payment of our bills. We have East Hampton Star 20751, Seacoast Enterprises 588.28. This is related to pump out boat supplies. LA Management $881. Again, this is a pump out boat. Season startup cost. East Hampton Marina $314.50. Another pump out boat cost, that's gas. $500 incidentals for boat supplies.
What's LA Management?
Yeah, who is LA Management?
That's Marine Boat Builders for the pump parts.
Oh, the Edson,
Yep.
the rebuild
Because
kits.
this for the 3 rebuild kits, right?
Yeah, all right.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes of the meeting, May 13th, 2024 are available for review. Has anybody read them?
Haven't seen them.
I read them, comfortable with them, or
Do you want to make a motion to accept the minutes as
somebody else
written?
wants to read them.
I haven't read them. So,
Okay. I trust your judgment implicitly, John. If you don't have a
I'll
problem.
make the motion.
go ahead.
I'll second it. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have some certificates of deposits that we're looking to close out. His CD ending in 6683 and a CD ending in 7248. Allison, wasn't there another CD that came due during that period that we were sort of frozen?
Yes, so the CD that ends in 0232, the trustees had already voted to close out to then roll into a treasury bill, but since our accounts were restrained, that got delayed. The bank is currently working to close that without penalty. And then, do you see those bullet points on that sheet that I gave you?
It's in the back of your folder.
And then the other two, there's a CD ending in 6683 that occurred on May 26th. We're still within the 10-day window on that one to make a decision. And then the CD ending in 7248 is set to mature on June 7th.
Okay.
Are these going to be rolled into T-bills or just?
We're gonna roll it into one T-bill, and the deal is it's only one $750 cost for that. And the deal is on the CDs, they're only paying us less than really 1%. We're going from there to a little over 5%.
Yeah, it's
So-
like 5.4%
Yeah,
today.
so I'd like to make a motion that we do this.
Second.
I agree.
This is great.
And this Francis set this up before he went on vacation. Is he flying tonight or is he already
Let's
there?
vote, let's vote. Let's vote on it.
What?
No, we didn't
First
all
and
say
second,
aye.
all those in favor?
Aye. Sorry, John, I get ahead of myself sometimes.
Who seconded that?
I
Tim,
think I did.
Thank you.
Let's see, financials for the month ending March 31st, 2024. Has anybody had an opportunity to look at this? I have not.
No, I'm not.
I'd like to say we table this until the next meeting. And then we have the report of the clerk. The clerk is presently in Ireland on a bus and rail tour. But we did have, me and Bill are the acting clerks here tonight. And we did have a $250 donation from Neil and Anita Pilzer for the scholarship program, which I thought was very nice. And I would like it if we could write a letter of thanks to them. I think this is not the first time they've done that.
They've done several things.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's a very nice gesture.
Thank you.
I'm giving out the scholarship next week at the high school awards ceremony, so can we say who it is? No, still.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you can.
You can't?
It's a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise,
Yeah,
yeah.
but we're going and we don't know what we're
Right,
getting.
Right, okay, that's right.
My daughter's a senior.
One high school senior is gonna be happy.
By the way, just as a point that I referenced in an email to everybody, I just have a quick question after the meeting is over, so I don't want everyone to disperse. I just have a quick question.
Matt, do we have anybody calling in? Is there anybody online?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to close the meeting?
motion to close.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matty.
Good night. Thank you.